I had always dreamed of working in a prestigious restaurant, and Wingstop seemed like the perfect place to start. It wasn't just any eatery, it was the talk of the town. Customers raved about our mouth-watering chicken wings and secret sauce. But little did I know that beneath the facade of success, there lurked a darkness that would haunt me forever. I was fresh out of culinary school when I got the job at Wingstop. The moment I walked through the doors, I was struck by its grandeur. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting a soft, eerie glow over the polished wooden tables. The restaurant was designed to resemble a Gothic castle, with dimly lit corners that seemed to hide secrets. My first day was filled with excitement. The staff was welcoming, and my manager, Mr. Blackwood, was a tall, imposing figure with a stern demeanor. He gave me a quick tour, pointing out the intricate details of the restaurant's interior and explaining its rich history. Wingstop has been around for generations, he told me. But there are some things you should know, especially when you're closing the restaurant at night. I didn't think much of it at the time. Every restaurant had its quirks, right? As the days turned into weeks, I became more familiar with the routine. The kitchen was bustling, the customers were satisfied, and the staff worked like a well-oiled machine. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, a strange transformation took place within Wingstop. It started with the whispers. At first, I thought it was just my imagination playing tricks on me, but soon I realized that others heard them too. It was as if the very walls of the restaurant had a voice of their own. The whispers were soft and indistinct, like the murmurs of a long-forgotten secret. One night, as I was wiping down a table, I overheard a couple at the corner booth talking about the whispers. "Did you hear that?" the woman asked, her companion, her voice trembling. He nodded, his eyes darting around nervously. "It's been happening every night since we started coming here." I couldn't help but eavesdrop. "What are you talking about?" I asked, unable to contain my curiosity. The woman looked at me, her eyes wide with fear. "The whispers. Can't you hear them?" I strained my ears, and sure enough, there it was, a soft, unintelligible murmur that sent shivers down my spine. I nodded, not wanting to admit that I had been hearing them for weeks. As time went on, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. They seemed to come from the very walls of the restaurant, as if the building itself was trying to communicate something to us. I asked my colleagues about it, but no one had any answers. We were all just as clueless and unnerved. The atmosphere in Wingstop became increasingly oppressive. The once elegant chandeliers now felt like oppressive weight above our heads. The polished wooden tables seemed to hold secrets within their grain, and the dimly lit corners appeared to hide more than just darkness. Then came the shadows. At first, they were just fleeting glimpses in the corners of my vision, shadows that moved when they shouldn't. But as the days turned into weeks, the shadows grew bolder, darting across the floor like phantoms in the night. One evening, as I was closing up the restaurant, I saw something that made my heart stop. A shadowy figure, tall and menacing, stood in the far corner of the dining area. I froze, unable to tear my eyes away from it. "Is someone there?" I called out, my voice trembling. The figure didn't respond, but it seemed to grow darker, more substantial, as if it were coalescing into a solid form. Panic welled up inside me, and I sprinted for the exit, not daring to look back. I told Mr. Blackwood about the shadowy figure, but he dismissed it with a wave of his hand. "It's just your imagination playing tricks on you," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. But I knew what I had seen. The shadows were real, and they were growing bolder with each passing night. I could feel their malevolent presence, lurking in the corners, watching, waiting. The whispers and shadows were not the only strange occurrences at Wingstop. Objects would move on their own, chairs would topple over when no one was near them, and strange symbols would appear on the walls overnight. It was as if the very essence of the restaurant had been tainted by something sinister. One night, as I was doing my closing duties, I found a note tucked under one of the tables. It was written in a language I couldn't understand, filled with strange symbols and cryptic drawings. The paper felt ice cold to the touch, and a chill ran down my spine as I read it. "Leave now, before it's too late." I showed the note to my colleagues, but they laughed it off, saying it was probably a prank. But I couldn't shake the feeling that it was a warning, a desperate plea from someone who had experienced the horrors of Wingstop firsthand. As the days turned into months, I grew increasingly paranoid. I couldn't sleep night, haunted by the whispers, shadows, and that ominous note. I began to research the history of Wingstop, hoping to find answers. What I discovered sent a shiver down my spine. Decades ago, Wingstop had been the site of a gruesome murder. A jealous lover had taken the life of his rival right in the very spot where the whispers were the loudest. The restaurant had never truly recovered from the tragedy, and the dark energy of that fateful night seemed to linger within its walls. I shared my findings with Mr. Blackwood, thinking it might shed some light on the strange occurrence. But instead of being surprised, he seemed strangely unfazed. "We all have our secrets, don't we?" he said cryptically. I couldn't take it anymore. The constant feeling of dread, the whispers, the shadows, they were driving me to the brink of madness. I decided to confront Mr. Blackwood and demand answers. One night, after the last customer had left, I cornered him in his office. "What's going on here, Mr. Blackwood? What are the whispers? What are the shadows? What is this place?" He looked at me with cold, calculating eyes. "Wingstop is more than just a restaurant," he said, his voice low and menacing. "It's a vessel for something ancient, something dark. The whispers are its voice, and the shadows are its presence. And you, my dear employee, have become a part of it." I backed away, my heart pounding in my chest. "I want out. I can't take this anymore." Mr. Blackwood's lips curled into a sinister smile. "There is no way out, my dear. Once you enter Wingstop, you are bound to it for eternity. You will become one with the darkness that dwells here." I turned and fled, desperate to escape the malevolent force that had taken hold of the restaurant. But no matter how far I ran, I could never escape the whispers, the shadows, and the ever-present sense of impending doom. Months turned into years, and I became a mere shadow of my former self. The darkness of Wingstop had consumed me, body and soul. I had lost all hope of ever escaping its clutches. One fateful night, as I was closing up the restaurant, I heard a voice among the whispers, a voice that was not like the others, a voice filled with anguish and despair. "Help me, please. Help me. I followed the voice, moist, heart heavy with dread, until I reached the corner booth where the voice seemed to originate. And there, sitting in the dimly lit corner, was the ghostly figure of the man who had been murdered all those years ago. His eyes met mine, and they were filled with a terrible sadness. "You can end this if you're willing to pay the price." I nodded, desperate for release from the torment that had become my life. "I'll do anything." The ghostly figure pointed to a knife on the table. "Take it. End my suffering, and you will free yourself from this curse." I hesitated for a moment, then picked up the knife. With trembling hands, I did what needed to be done. The figure let out a mournful wail, and as his form dissipated, so did the whispers and shadows that had haunted Wingstop for so long. But as I stood there, covered in blood and horror, I realized the terrible truth. I had become a part of the darkness that dwelled within the restaurant. I had paid the price for my freedom with a murder of my own. And as I gazed around the now silent Wingstop, I knew that I would be forever haunted by the memories of that night, by the whispers, the shadows, and the darkness that had consumed us all.